In my opinion, routine fertility visits are the grassroots of dairy farming in the UK. We need to maintain fertility performance in order to maintain productivity and general health throughout the dairy herds. If fertility starts to wander, everything else starts to go awry sooner or later. It does come all the way full circle that if we can keep on top of this aspect, most of the other things will fall into place. In my opinion, routine fertility visits consist of regular contact, and I would say ideally, depending on the herd size, at least a fortnightly basis. Some of the bigger 600-700 cow herds, you have enough cows to warrant a visit on a weekly basis, in order that you keep up with maintaining contact with the right groups of cows. I suppose the barrier is the potential perceived cost of having a vet on farm costs money, and you have to write a cheque for that. And I think what you need to carefully counterbalance is go through the figures, work out perhaps a realistic figure of what people think empty days cost, and what the total fertility performance of that herd potentially is cost in lost revenue, which is money that unfortunately the farmer doesn't see by tightening everything up and getting much less empty, non-productive days out of your cows.
The benefits to me, I think, are I can try and plan my calving when I want my calving rather than going to an all year round, from my point of view, a mess. Rather, you can't concentrate on anything at once, so we like to concentrate on serving, then calving, and then serving and then calving, rather than doing everything at once. And that's from my point of view why we try and have a routine visit to sort things out for us.
We have the vet in on a fortnightly visit, the idea being that we can get them served as soon as possible, because we're trying to calve in 2 blocks, so ideally we want as many animals served as soon as possible. It gives them the best chance of getting in calf.
The basis of the routine fertility work will always be determining whether the cows are pregnant, trying to sort out who's not pregnant and what is the reason for them not being pregnant. You're always looking for trends, because fertility is almost every factor on the farm. Fertility on a whole herd basis is nutrition, dry cow period management, disease control, body condition control, and estrus detection. The more you go into fertility, the more you realise there is no one factor. It isn't just a matter of PDing a cow and saying, no, she's not in calf. That's what's changed over the last 10 years. There's no doubt that the fertility exam still forms the basis of every visit, but now, particularly with using ultrasound scanners all the time, you get so much more information. All the farmers that have traditionally had a real mental block against having routine veterinary work, they're the ones often a year later who are the best advocate.
Well, we started routine vet visits 2 years ago, doing routine visits and PDing cows at sort of 40 odd days. If there's a problem, you soon find out. Fertility is very important. The cows don't give any milk if they don't get in calf, and being able to monitor that and being able to make sure all your cows are in calf, deal with any problems and deal with problems early, that you can do with a routine that you can't do on what we previously used to do on a more sort of ad hoc basis of having fertility visits maybe perhaps every 6 weeks or whenever we felt we needed to have a visit. By having a routine visit, you're on top of any problems that a cow might have in order to get it back in calf as quick as you can, so obviously it calves down again and is milking again. And having the vet there every fortnight, if there's anything we need to show him, we can do.
I would be quite disappointed on most farms if we couldn't do a very rough calculation that showed them that what we anticipate saving them would completely cover the cost of all our time here.
If you didn't have a monthly, you'd really struggle, because you miss a lot of things over that month. Cows that are not coming and bulling that should be, dirty cows that have had problems from calving and are not quite cleaned up yet. And we don't see it as a cost really, it's part and parcel of how we run the business. Ideally, we like to have it once a week. Very pleased with the vast amount of information what we've got now. It's very useful that the vet can look at the data as well and help us utilise it better. Fertility is obviously very important, but one of the most important things is time. Any time that is lost is a big cost, and it's not a cost that you see in your accounts year by year, but it's a cost that builds up very slowly over a long period of time. And the faster you can get them back in calf, the more money you'll save.
I think as a farm vet nowadays, we can almost never have enough data. You can get data that tells us almost anything we want to know. But I think there is a bit of a misconception amongst some of the farmers we're trying to convert onto routine visits that they have to produce reams of data. When in fact all we would like, if we were going to take a small farm on for a routine visit client, is we'd like them to be on milk recording so that we can access NMR data. And a lot of the farmers just don't realise what data information that gives you. So what we do is we benchmark the farmers against national averages so they know whether they're doing better, average or poorer than the national average. We concentrate on culling rate, so how many animals do they actually lose each year, dead or having to get rid of because they're not in calf, they're high cell count. We're interested in the calving intervals, because the shorter we get the calving interval towards that magic kind of 385, 390 days. A lot of farmers often say, well, I can't see why we bring the calving interval in, because they're going to calve again and they keep milking. They're missing the fact that in a lot of cases they're feeding them the same diet day by day, a total ration, but they're getting less and less milk. We want them to feed the same diet and get a higher milk yield, so we need a tighter calving interval.
We've been able to pick up these cows which aren't cycling, and the vets address the problem, and I've been able to get these cows back in calf again, which before it was one of the things that we just took for granted, I suppose. That it was one of those things. You have a percentage of cows which you can't get back in calf, and we thought that was, that was it. We really start gearing up for the routine visit around October, the end of September, October. So we start off with sort of 2 weekly intervals, and then from that we go to monthly intervals, right through till sort of the end of May time. All the data that comes into the farm, we actually analyse it, and in conjunction with my vet as well, and she'll advise me on where we should be looking, things that need to be addressed. Doing this data for about 3 years now. Since then it's snowballed. We've got the vet heavily involved with routine visits and addressing all these problems, and we're now finding that things seem to be getting a lot better than what they were, because we didn't realise, we were just going along nicely, but we didn't realise we could do things better, more productive.
Routine visits aren't just about PDing the cows, telling the farmer yes they're in calf, no they're not. It's getting a grasp and a feel for the whole farm and other areas such as housing, feeding, the general condition of the cows, how they look and whether they're lame, getting an idea of the levels of lameness on a farm, which you're not going to see when the cows are just stood in front of you and you're PDing them. But it enables you then to sort of give advice on other areas such as housing and feeding. And an example of this is the changes we've made with some of the feeding areas on this particular farm. What I would say to farmers that aren't already doing routine fertility visits would be that it's not just about the fertility, it's about all the things that affect fertility, it's about all the other health issues that are involved on the farm, and there's a lot more to the routine visit than just PDing the cows and telling you they're in calf. Don't be put off by data. We're not going to come and bombard you with lots of big reports and data. That can be tailored to suit your individual needs. If you want that, obviously you can have it. If not, there are simple baseline data requirements that we can use month on month, that we just require a piece of paper and a pen and a few basic calculations. Don't be put off. Pick up the phone, give us a ring and just get one of us out and just have a chat for an hour, sit down and see what we can offer you.
We've been doing routine visits, fertility visits, for many years. The routine of benefits is that cows get scanned more often, and if they're not in calf, they are then recycled to start the process again. And if you have it once a month, a lot of them lose a lot of days. So that is the aim.
Currently our calving interval is 395 days. We have been down to 385 days, slipped back in the last few months. Rolling average is just over 10,000 litres. Cows are currently averaging 34 litres per cow per day. We've been using the drove veterinary practice for the last 12 years. We have, at the moment, we're running monthly routine visits, but during the winter months it's more like every fortnight. The main reason for this is keeping on top of the herd fertility and making sure that any anestrus cows and cows that we don't catch bull in, cystic cows, are dealt with as quickly as possible. Any cows that we don't see in estrus up to 50 days after calving are put out for veterinary intervention. One of the biggest plus sides of having regular routine visits is keeping on top of the herd fertility. To us, it's far better to spend their money on the routine visit and getting the cows back in calf as soon as we can, rather than allowing cows to slip round and causing the calving interval to slip over 400 days, which then becomes quite costly. As part of our routine fertility visits, we also, once we finish the routine work outside, we go in the house, put the kettle on, switch the computer on, and with our vet we will look at the herd management software into herd and also our herd companion. And through that we make informed decisions on fertility parameters.
We started doing a routine visit probably about 18 months ago with Tyndale. Before then it was more just a reactive approach to fertility. There's so many other things happening on the farm. Fertility was often put down to a wet day job, you know, getting the vet in, you know, at the last minute. I think you'll get as much benefit from whatever herd size you've got. Smaller one, I think you're probably better off on a routine with a smaller herd, because your margin for errors, you haven't got the margin for errors that a large herd probably could get away with. You know, we've been well pleased with the results, you know, increase in production from our herd on the milk records.
Well, I think a major reason why Tim first brought us onto the farm on a routine basis was he had quite a long calving interval, and time from the cows calving to getting back in calf was in some cases becoming quite protracted. So through working with Tim, we've managed to take the calving to conception interval down by about 30%, just by tightening up on getting cows clean after calving, getting them bulling and served sort of as quickly as possible after the voluntary waiting period. Over the last 18 months that we've been working with Tim, we've seen quite a big increase in yield in Tim's herd. This is a combination of getting the cows round and back in calf quicker, and he's also added some maize into the diet.